It's noon, so I'm gonna get started. I'm Janet Petrie, and I'd like to welcome you to the Let's Get Local workshop. Today, we're going to be hearing about ways to take action at the local level to help enact effective climate solutions. First, our panelists are going to introduce themselves and tell their stories. That will be followed by a Q&A led by me. Next, we'll have 15-minute breakout sessions where you can ask these your questions individually, and the panelists can give you more resources. You can choose a breakout session depending on your own goal and your community needs. We'll come back together for a short 10-minute session where you can share what you learned or an action you're going to take next. And now we're going to be hearing from 3 CCL volunteers. Lucas Sabalka from Lincoln, Nebraska is on the board of the Lincoln Electrical System, his electric utility. Lucas was formerly a professor of mathematics and now is chief engineer at a local med tech. He splits his volunteer time among LES, public speaking, and meeting with thought leaders and politicians focusing on decarbonization. He'll tell us how LES set a goal of decarbonizing by 2040. Ross Hadley is a city council member and local business owner from Decorah, Iowa. Lucas has worked in many capacities on sustainability issues at Luther College and in Decorah. He was involved in the founding of the Luther Environmental Concerns Group back in 1994, and he's continued he's continued to work in many other capacities, including the Decorah Chamber of Commerce, the Sustainability Commission, and others. He'll describe that the city followed as it set an ambitious sustainability goal, and how he brought to his council a resolution supporting HR 763. Brad Kingery lives in Bemidji, Minnesota. He's a CCL coordinator for North Dakota and is a member of the Bemidji CCL chapter. He's lived in Iowa, North Dakota, and Minnesota. He's worked in forestry in a variety of ways, and he has a deep appreciation of our local native landscapes. He led the effort to get a municipal resolution passed and an EICD endorsement in his home city of Bemidji, Minnesota. And Brad, we're going to start with you. Can you tell us more about yourself, your goal, and the steps that it took to reach that goal?
Yeah, so I grew up in Iowa. I was a farm kid. I raised a lot of pigs. I showed calves at the county fair. Moved to Minnesota, and first thing I did is I became a contractor to the U.S. Forest Service, and our crews, we had an outstanding crew. We planted in excess of 1 million trees in Superior National Forest, and you know, that was kind of my initiation into the forest industry, and I've been there ever since. Ended up in North Dakota, running a hardwood sawmill, doing river and forest restoration. And so I'm at that age now where I'm thinking of other things. And this is kind of a priority in my life right now is, you know, doing CCL work. June of 2017, we did a group restart in the Bemidji area, Linda, my wife and I. And you know, shortly thereafter, we decided that we were going to, you know, get the endorsement on carbon fee and dividend at the Bemidji Council. And oh, first I want to back up because I really want to name my talk here because it is important. And I'm going to name my talk Roger, Another Bemidji Legend. So we, our volunteers, we approached the city council, and we were advised that we needed to go through the sustainability committee. And so we strategized. I was the one with nothing to do. So I presented to the sustainability committee, and I was, actually quite nervous. I was really stepping out of my comfort zone because, I was used to long walks in the woods and working alone. So after some time, we decided we would join the sustainability committee in their semi-annual report to the city. And so we, sent the resolution in advance. And in October of 2017, we were on the agenda. And things went rather well until the mayor asked if there was any discussion. And a gentleman named Roger said, "Yeah, I've got something to say." And it was a serious shout down. We were told in pretty short order that who do we think we are asking someone else to do what we don't do ourselves? Those are the words I remember. And so our group, we left really disappointed. And we actually had some members at that point that were really good members that they never came back. I mean, it was a serious attack on what we were doing. Fast forward, we had a strategy, or we developed a strategy. We're going to do this. So we had Roger to contend with. And so that is a role I took on, to meet with Roger. Roger didn't return phone calls, didn't return emails. And I was doing the best I could. And finally, I called the city clerk's office to find out how it is that I could get a hold of this council person to arrange for a meeting. And I got the assistant clerk, who happened to be assigned to the sustainability committee. And she informed me I was wasting my time. And so I continued and started attending council meetings, and the only reason I was there was to meet with Roger for a few minutes before he got out the door. And so I persisted. Months went by. Finally, Roger, I caught him at a weak moment. He said, "Yeah, let's have coffee." Great guy. He's an engineer. He entered the wood industry about the same time I did. He had some bad luck in life and had to start over. And has a brother in Florida that teaches advanced science. That was a really big clue, that he knew more than he let on. Another individual, Richard, was a city council, or he was previously a mayor, signed the president's, oh shoot, what was that? The president's, the mayor's climate protection agreement. And so he was pretty skeptical, and we had a couple of great visits, and it just felt positive. Back up just a second. The lesson we learned is that you got to have the votes before you go in there and do this thing. Make sure you have your votes. And so that's what we were doing, counting votes. I'm trying to not look at my notes here. I asked Roger to attend the Minnesota conference in the Twin Cities. He couldn't make it. Then it was in the summertime, you know, that following summer, his house was hit with a tornado, of all things, in Bemidji. It was his house. And so I went to the council meeting. I was attending as many as I could, and that was most of them. And he was headed out the door, and I, you know, asked him how he was doing, and you know, it's kind of scary. And I offered, you know, I have tree skills. I said I could, you know, could I help you out? And he said insurance has it covered, no problem. I said, this is why we need a price on carbon. And he said, I agree. And I said, let's get together. We met, had a little discussion, and he agreed, you know, after some discussion, to bring it forward, bring our resolution to the council, and so then it's on 2 minutes. On the September of 2018, we were on the agenda, and Roger had done all the work. And so we were just totally surprised that when we got there, the work had all been done. We stood up, thought there was going to be a discussion, and basically it was just a vote. And they voted passed 6-1. Told Roger afterwards, I said, you know, I feel like giving you a hug, and he just hugged me. And it was really an exceptional moment.
Excuse me, Brad.
Yeah.
1 more minute.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
And so then, we, you know, then the HR 763 was introduced to the House, and we had to do it again because it was, we wanted to officially endorse HR 763. And so once again, we brought it forward. The mayor assured us we had the votes. There was a little discussion, a little bit of negative talk from a new council member that passed 5-2. And Bemidji was one of the first cities in the Midwest to officially endorse HR 763. Very, very good outcome. So thank you.
Thank you, Brad. That's great. And now we'll hear from Lucas. You want to tell us about your project?
Sure, although I'm not sure I can claim it as my project because, as you're going to hear, this was not, I was one small piece of it, and moreover, I didn't even get it started. So the thing that I'm going to talk about is Lincoln Electric System, our local utility, has passed a resolution supporting decarbonization from to be 100% net zero carbon dioxide for its generation portfolio by 2040. And I just submitted a link there. Actually, maybe I'll see if I can. Yeah, I'm not going to bother sharing the screen. You can click on the links if you want to read the resolution. But that resolution is the culmination of a tremendous amount of effort and work by many, many people. Not just me. I just happened to be one of the people that was able to vote for the resolution. LES is a public utility. All Nebraska utilities are public. That means that there's public ownership, there's public oversight of the utilities. In Lincoln, it happens to be that the board of directors, the administrative board, is appointed by the mayor. So I was asked by the previous mayor in Lincoln to serve on this board with 8 of my colleagues. And as a board, we unanimously passed this resolution stating, with some really good language, I encourage you to read it, but stating that LES is going to be net zero by 2040. It was an 8-0 vote. There was 1 member absent, so it was unanimous. And this was the culmination of a more than a year of effort from numerous individuals. The board itself had been considering what to do in terms of setting a decarbonization goal for well over a year. Staff was adamant that in order to make a decision around decarbonization, we needed to have all of the information, be educated. We have a fairly novice board in the sense that most of our members were appointed in the last 3 years. So we took over 12 months to go through a number of different topics, from how the Southwest Power Pool works to climate change 101 to impacts on Nebraska to things like, could we as a utility unilaterally decide to decarbonize by 2030? What would that entail as far as the staff could foretell? So that's it was a long process with lots of input. It was a good example of actually kind of the CCL way. It was a good example of people engaging with an avenue for enacting change from hundreds of individuals in the public, including Citizens Climate Lobby, as well as other groups, Nebraska, Sierra Club Nebraska, Interfaith Power and Light, Nebraska Conservation Voters, all sorts of various sustainability groups testified, sent emails, encouraged, cajoled, etc. But almost everyone that was involved was embracing CCL values of respect, appreciation, and gratitude. And if there's one thing to embrace and take away from CCL, in my opinion, it's the CCL way works. Approaching people with respect, appreciation, and gratitude, building those bridges is how you get change accomplished. The board itself was, has a variety of opinions on it. And, some people represent business, some people represent private individuals, some people have more conservative views, some people have more liberal views. But it was I was a big fan of the process because it involved a number of different perspectives being expressed. Everyone felt like they were comfortable. Everyone everyone was heard. And even though that there were some people that were not necessarily as ambitious as something like a 2040 goal, there was tremendous discussion, and you could see, as the discussion happened, you could see the two sides kind of coming together, looking for that middle ground. And in the end, we ended up with a compromise between something like a 2030 goal, which, according to staff, would have been fairly expensive and actually a little bit, fairly difficult, in the sense that in the power industry, you have to make decisions that last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And even something like shutting down a coal-fired power plant or getting out of contracts for coal-fired power plant, and then replacing the capacity you've just lost, that takes probably 12 to 15 years to figure out. So a 10-year timeline is fairly difficult. I look back to, for example, the most recent coal utility that came online for LAS was a unit that I think came online in 2007, maybe 2008, something along that line. But it wasn't initially developed until, I'm sorry, it took a long time to initially develop. It was officially approved in 1998 or 1999. There's that kind of time lag for building resources and for thinking about, that's how far ahead utilities need to plan. So coming from that 2050 kind of bare minimum, even if we want to hold it to 3 degrees Celsius warming, we need to be to 2050, but it's probably doable for the industry, versus 2030, which we probably do need for 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, but is very, very difficult without federal oversight. 2040 was a good compromise. Another way that the the board compromised was by looking at, well, do we need 100%? Is it net zero? Is it 100% renewable? Is it that 100% goal, or is 90% or 80% good enough? And then on the other hand, what kind of a goal is it? Is it a 100% renewable goal? Is it a net zero goal? What's allowed to be counted for our generation to decarbonize? Is it all low carbon to zero carbon or negative carbon resources, or is it just renewables? And so again, there was this compromise where we said, okay, we're going to do 100%. We're going to set us a 100% goal, but we're going to leave all the tools on the table. We're going to make it so that it's a net zero goal instead of 100% renewable. We're not going to restrict to, let's say, for example, that, miraculously carbon capture becomes a viable option economically. It's nowhere near that right now, but it could be in the next 20 years. We're leaving that option on the table. That's a future discussion for a future board to tackle, whether that's actually something we want to do or not. But that method of compromise, of trying to find out, trying to say, okay, this is where we want to be, and this is what we have to balance as we try to reach that goal in terms of our responsibilities to our customers, fiscal responsibility for safe, reliable, affordable, and sustainable power. How do we meet those goals while still trying to address climate change, trying to reduce those emissions, and while we do it from a local leadership perspective? This discussion would be infinitely easier if there were federal or larger directive, larger oversight, like a federal price on carbon, for example. It would make my job as a member of a public utility board so much easier in terms of planning for the future, because of course carbon prices are predictable, they're long-term, they let you set those goals. Without those goals, though, we're going to do the best we can. That's where the 2040, 100% by 2040 comes in.
Excuse me, Lucas. Sorry, one more minute.
Okay. So without those goals, that's where the goal of 2040 comes in. Maybe with a federal price on carbon, we can get there faster. President Biden has a goal of 2035 for the power industry. That's probably going to take some federal leadership, like a price on carbon. But we'll do what we can locally. I think it was a testament to public input, a testament to the hundreds of people that were talking to me and my fellow board members, and again, a testament to that respect, appreciation, and gratitude the CCO way. I want to say just one more thing around public utilities decarbonizing, and that is that LES is not unique. 2040 is a little bit on the ambitious side, but it is definitely something that many utilities across the nation are embracing. There's over 30 utilities that have goals by 2040 or before. More than half of the US population is now served by utilities that have a decarbonization goal by 2050 or better. So this is something that is a way of enacting local change. I encourage people that are on the line, even if you aren't represented by public power, to talk to your utilities, because this is the direction the utilities are moving. This is a way for citizens to engage, and it's really a testament that LES did this resolution, that the specifics are for Lincoln, Nebraska, but find the specifics in your community and then go and exercise your power as a citizen to enact change, build that change. I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Lucas. And I'll just throw in that my utility, Xcel, a little bit larger, is going to every city council asking for a letter of support for their integrated resource plan. So that's an opportunity for input. So, and now I'd like to hear, now Ross, can you tell us about what's happened in Decorah?
Sure. Brad, I just want to say, I worked at Paul Bunyan Playhouse for a summer, and I spent a lot of time wandering around the woods in Bemidji. When I was done building sets, it's a beautiful place. And someday we'll have to come up and visit. I don't know I can't remember the bar right next to Paul Bunyan Playhouse, but in a post-COVID world, the first beer is on me.
Okay, great.
And Lucas, I'll get into it, but Decorah has been in a long-term exercise to municipalize our power. And I just read about your microgrid in Lincoln that they're working on. I'm insanely jealous. So kudos to you guys for being progressive in the microgrid area. That's and not a lot of extra cost. That's super cool. So if you guys haven't read about it, geek out on microgrids in Lincoln.
Thank you. I'll just take this opportunity to say, well, first of all, we got lucky, but second of all, I'm extremely proud of the people at LAS. They do a fantastic job, and this is, the microgrid is completely unrelated to sustainability initiatives, or at least decarbonization, but it's just a testament to the kind of people that I work with. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's cool. So Decorah is just kind of trying to tackle it all. The little town that could, or almost could, because our municipalization vote in the last round failed by 3 votes, which was gutting. But my involvement in sustainability goes back to college, which has been a few years. But there's a grassroots movement in Decorah that supports sustainability. So it's not, you just need to find your cheerleaders, right? Every community has cheerleaders, and it's just a matter of being able to focus them. Our sustainability plan, which I think that is up in that Byron put up in the chat links. If you look at it, the sustainability plan is really wide and broad. It took us, the first sustainability plan that I was on was in 2010. We wrote a sustainability plan, which was kind of prompted around, again, Brad, I heard you mention the Mayor's Climate Protection Act agreement. In Decorah in 2006, our mayor signed that as well. And it was meaningful, but we didn't really do anything. I think there were a group of citizens that were interested in climate, and we were all acknowledging that there was an issue in 2006, but there wasn't a ton of viability in the mainstream, right? We had people who were off grid, but it was still the nuts and twigs crowd. It wasn't tied to money. It wasn't tied to your farm or carbon or anything. But in 2010, the community gained a little bit of traction and formed a sustainability group and built a sustainability plan. The problem was there were no metrics behind it. So there was no climate, there was no carbon data, there were no metrics for, it was sustainability in the largest way and resilience. But a lot of work was done. And then in 2017, we worked to revise our plan with a 2030 goal, which we know is very aggressive for being a net zero community. It's very ambitious, but we are also, we're either looking at municipalizing our power, or we're also working with our incumbent power provider who just installed a 2.5 megawatt battery to be able to handle more solar in the community. I'll screen share later on, but we have a lot of solar in Decorah, and it's heartening, right? People are drinking the Kool-Aid, and we have a community college here, or not a community, we have a college within our community, Luther College, which has they were in the 8th in the nation as far as sustainability and reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. They've reduced their carbon footprint by 55% already since starting in 2004. And they've reduced their purchase of carbon power by 37.8% through solar. And there are 350 solar systems in Winneshiek County, where Decorah is located. And there are 20,000 solar panels. So even though 2030 is it's a tough goal, as part of the council, we are having our departments audit down to like pump level, well pumps, boilers, transportation methods. Our police department just purchased a hybrid vehicle. We're looking more at community solar, although Decorah's in a crater, a meteor crater in a limestone river valley. So we are not blessed with lots and lots of free land where we can put solar. Luther does have a wind tower that generates quite a bit of power, but it's difficult. And tying it back to money, community partnerships, something we are lucky to have is a community bank who have financed 140 commercial and residential solar projects. And this coming spring, my business is going to be one of them. I'm putting solar on my roof and retrofitting completely to LED. So it's important to not just talk the talk, but getting back to CCL, Leslie, who is on the call, happy birthday, Leslie. Ha ha ha. Leslie and Marty Runyon came to me and invited me out for coffee. And we were right in the middle of trying to wrap up the sustainability plan and trying to get it adopted, because our 2010 plan was accepted by the council, but it was never adopted. And that is a very important distinction, because accepted means thanks for your work, we're going to put it on a shelf. And adopted meant that we actually gave it policy. We have a seated sustainability commission now, apparently like Bemidji does. And we're using the franchise fee from Alliant Energy, part of our franchise fee from Alliant, to fund our sustainability commission. So they're helping, even though the state has rolled back initiatives, we're going to use franchise fees to help support things like that. And the Winneshiek Energy District, we also have an energy district in our community, which has they've served over 1,000 homes and saving the average customer about $120 a year. So Winneshiek Energy District, the bank, and the Sustainability Commission, I think will help us reach our goal. And Leslie and Marty and Lyle brought forth the HR 763 resolution, and we passed resolution 3063, supporting the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Bill. And we passed it on a 5-2 margin. One of the council people who voted no is traditionally a no vote for you would call progressive things, and called it a wealth distribution nightmare, I think he said. And
excuse me, Ross. Sorry, one more minute. Yeah.
All right. A nightmare. And the other commission council member who voted no wouldn't vote for it unless it did more to get rid of fossil fuels. So it's important to realize, as Leslie had pointed out to me, that you need to be able to be prepared for both people who are against it from a sustainability standpoint and for people who feel like it may not be enough. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now we'll go into some questions for you three, and I think you could just, talk as you wish. Just start yourself up when you want to say something. So the first question: what were the key factors involved in getting you to the outcome that you described today? What were the key contributions by volunteers and other advocates? I see Mary, oh, I also see a hand raised.
I would just say, this is Brad. I would just say that in our case, was really focusing on a strategy and really understanding how much work was involved and then just really doing the work. I mean, it was a lot of work, and that's just the way it's going to be in most cases.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think that it's a, it was a more than a year process for us to get there, and countless conversations with many people. The one of the biggest things that we had as input was public input. It was people speaking to our meetings. It was people sending in emails. It was people talking to board members. Personally, I had to be convinced that setting a goal was the way to go for LES, because I'm confident. I mentioned how proud I am of LES staff. I'm confident that we would have been decarbonizing without a goal, but I was convinced to support a goal because of the message it sends. It's not just, okay, we're all trying to do our part, we're all trying to do our share, but saying we're all doing our part and doing our share, representing that to the broader community, the broader utility industry, and trying to say, let's do this together. So I was one of the people that needed to be convinced by those hundreds of people that talked to LES. So yeah, persistence, respect, appreciation, and gratitude.
Process is something else, because I am not a process person. And to try to, for our project, to try to focus the energies of so many people and so many goals, we had to set a process in order for communication and for goal setting. Even if it's just what is your preferred method of communication for outreach, or what is your learning style? Because everybody's different, and some people prefer email, some people prefer texts, some people prefer going out for coffee in a pre-COVID world, and just finding the right communication channel and the process to achieve that goal.
I would add in our case, speaking to Ross's point, I don't have the skills. I can cut a tree down, I can chop firewood, I can do all of that, but I don't email, I don't do any of that stuff. And so for me to really establish partnership with my wife, Linda, and then we just really, had each other's back all the way.
So another question, what would you have done differently? What roadblocks did you hit?
I guess, I described that lengthy process. I would have preferred we were able to move faster. So I'll call the time that we spent on setting a goal as part of a roadblock. But the second part of the question was, what would I have done differently? In retrospect, I wouldn't have changed that, because the deliberation that we gave the goal setting did two things. Number one, it helped provide a space to bring people together and to find that common ground in terms of setting the goal, to have the discussions that are needed. And then number two, it legitimized the process because of that space, because of the amount of effort that we put into it. It's going to be a lot harder for people to say to LES, you're moving too quickly, you didn't think this through. And so that would be the biggest roadblock, but I wouldn't have changed it.
Okay. Because I'm going to ask something from the floor here. This is if there's extra time. Did you share your successes with the representatives and senators that represent you in Congress? Anybody?
Yes,
I know
yes,
in
we did.
Decorah, we did.
Our resolution was sent by email to the
Mhm.
District 7 and 8.
And we did in Decorah also.
I didn't personally, but that's part of the CCL structure, right? There are many people in Lincoln CCL, and I think, I don't know, I'd estimate maybe a dozen emails went to our members of Congress from various people saying, hey, this is something worth celebrating and paying attention to.
Janet?
Yeah?
Michael Overend has a question. He wants to make a comment.
Yeah,
on-
I
Oh,
see. So
sorry.
let's see, over, and I get that back. I have 2 utility questions here. But if you other 2 want to talk about utilities, go ahead. Anyway, I'm being a little silly there. So, so one is, why are these contracts so lengthy? And another one is, may I make a comment on our experience with our GRE utility? So, and so if we can take a little side jump to that for you, I think those are for you, Lucas.
I think the GRE utility is for the moderators. I don't know
Right.
anything about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
For the length of contracts, if you think about something like energy generation, you have different assets that you use. The typical historical asset has been coal power. It's a plant, the power plant, coal or nuclear or wind or natural gas. And when you build a plant, it's extremely expensive, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so you have to amortize that over a very long period of time. Those buildings, you're essentially putting into place a large scale building with infrastructure. You want to use that for as long as possible. Typically, the life of a coal plant is 50 years. And so when people invest in coal plants, they have to sign contracts that say, I'm in this for 50 years. Otherwise, you can't get financing, it doesn't get built. And so the decision-making process, a lot of these contracts are on the scale of decades. That's true for wind and solar too, by the way. I mean, wind, for example, has tremendous upfront investment costs, but very little ongoing costs. So you have to be able to finance that cost. To finance that cost, you have to say, okay, I'm committing to running this for at least 20 years. 20 years is the typical length of time for a wind contract or a solar contract. It's the way that the power industry works. Things are very expensive and you have to spread it out over decades. So you have to have commitments over decades.
And another question, what do you wish you had known beforehand?
I think setting a timeline would have been very helpful. Sorry, my dog is horfing in the background. Having a timeline for smaller goals and things like that. So kind of back to the process. There was just so much that we were tackling that having a timeline established and kind of having a vision of our out of what the deliverable was going to be to the council in what form and format. We really struggled on how to have something that was both advisory and regulatory. And that's why the 2030 goal was lengthy. And for example, we're working with the CEEE out of UNI, who uses a tool called, SharePoint, SoftPoint, but it's to measure your carbon your carbon basis. And I wish we would have spent more time on that carbon tool.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, was there another one, another comment there? And what advice do you have for other volunteers approaching their city or their power company? Is anything to add on that?
Keep it simple. Council people are busy. They're usually not professionals in smaller towns. So keep your message simple, and make your ask clear. So, for example, will you support HR 763, or can we get your support on energy innovation and the carbon dividend? And present exactly what you want to them, because it makes the conversation simple.
I'll echo what I've been saying, which is the CCO way: respect, appreciation, and gratitude.
Yeah.
I think we've also kind of added to that during this discussion, persistence. I think that that's also a good thing to bring to the table here. Whatever, the specific levers that you're going to be utilizing, whether it's in-person conversations or emails or testimony or what have you, letters to the editor, are going to be dependent on the specifics of your community. But those underlying principles of I like what Ross said about being clear, being persistent, and then having respect.
Am I on?
Mhm.
I would just, being sensitive to where people are at. It's just interesting in developing relationship. There are clues, and those are very important. And how to get to the end that you're looking for.
I think we're doing pretty well on time. So I'll throw in that I see in the chat that there was a question. There were some questions. What did I mean about what Xcel is requesting? And they have to come up. I'm not sure how it is in other states, but in Minnesota, they have to come up with a plan, integrated resource plan for what they're going to do in the future. And they need to get approval for that. So they would like city councils to say, yes, we think you're moving ahead fast enough, and so on. And so that's that process. I don't know how it is in other states. And there are other people saying you can do even better. So there's some couple of different voices there. And I think we can, and Michael Overend said that would like to talk about what's happening with their utility. So if you could unmute yourself, or perhaps we have to do that, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Janet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I just want to say thank you to the panelists and everybody organizing this. I hopped on 15 minutes late, so I apologize. I don't know what was covered in that first 15 minutes. What I did want to do is give you hope, because I'd like to share the story that we had in our community that is, I think, really, really optimistic. We live in Two Harbors, Minnesota, north of Duluth, and we're part of a cooperative utility. And our cooperative gets our power, or their power, from Great River Energy, which is the second largest utility in Minnesota. It has 700,000 customers that it serves through 28 member cooperatives. It is a company that has a legacy coal-fired electric power plant in North Dakota called Coal Creek, and that has provided 1,100 megawatts of power for them since 1970. And in April of 2019, a small group of us from our utility, or our cooperative, approached our cooperative's board and said, we'd like to know what the plan is to retire that coal-fired power plant, and we'd like to just be part of the process to learn more about that and hopefully influence it to shut down more rapidly. We had a couple of meetings with our board of directors at the cooperative and really didn't make much progress. We did incorporate CCL ways, just like Lucas is recommending, because we really felt it was important to do that. And because we weren't getting our answers that we were asking in a polite and respectful way, we asked them to reach out to the company and the parent company, GRE, and they sent a representative once, and then again, a couple of months later, they sent another one. And the message that we heard was that this coal-fired power plant was essential to their operation, and they could see no way to shut it down before 2030. So that was in April of 2019, and we fast forward to May of 2020, and a press release came out on May 7th, and it said Coal Creek plans to shut its plant down in 2022 and become 95% carbon-free in 2023. And it came right out of the blue. It was just absolutely jaw-dropping. And they are shutting down that coal plant. They are adding in, they plan on adding in, I think it's 1.2, sorry, I'm not very good with statistics here. Let me do it this way. Goodness gracious. They plan on adding in about $1.2 billion worth of wind energy in the next couple of years to cover that production loss. And they're also going to do a pilot battery storage project with a 1 megawatt grid connected storage system that is designed to have long lasting power up to 150 hours. So I can read lots and lots of statistics here, but I know that my main point in asking to speak is that this is something where our group that spoke up locally was just a small piece of this. There were other environmental groups that were also asking this company to move in this direction. And the Public Utility Commission of Minnesota also was a key part of this. And the backstory is that this coal plant was actually costing their customers an extra $60 million every year. And renewables was that much cheaper, and they were dragging their feet to do this, but they finally decided that they couldn't fight the economics of it anymore. So my suggestion to everyone here is that this is a great story. You can look into it online easily, but it's very hopeful, and it demonstrates how the economics of renewable energy will dictate what these companies have to do in a very powerful fashion. And if you can incorporate that message into your ask, I think you can have astounding results. At least I hope you will. So I'll stop yakking here and see if I can contribute anything else later.
Thanks a lot. That's a great story. Yeah, so people can look up Coal Creek Power, and it's a great story. And we're still doing okay on time. So if you have questions that you'd like for the three folks, then look at that. There's a reactions button down in the lower right of your screen, should be. And if you click on that and raise your hand, then we could call on you. Yeah.
Janet, can I just add to what Michael was saying? I just wanted to, highlight that what Michael's talking about is happening industry-wide. Mm-hmm. The industry in general is facing kind of a confluence of change, and it's become pretty obvious to most utilities that this is the direction that things are going. Whereas, 4 years ago, most utilities would have been pretty on the fence about doing things like planning for coal retirements in the 2020s. Now you're seeing a lot of utilities recognize that decarbonization is where they need to go. They need to figure out how to get off of that coal power and how to put on renewables while still retaining reliability. And so that's maybe discussion for another day, but things like storage and battery storage or compressed air storage or hydro storage or something like this are part of the mix. But that's one of the reasons, in terms of the utilities know that they need to get off of coal, but we need a predictable replacement is one of the big reasons that I support carbon pricing. It allows utilities to make long-term plans with predictable prices for the future, and it simultaneously develops markets for the replacement technologies that we need to supply that reliability. And to Michael's point, this is happening across the nation, and for your utility, they're look at those older coal plants. They're probably starting to think about end of life, and you might be able to influence that course of events.
Yeah, so places like Fresh Energy are analyzing the economics of utilities and saying, haven't you noticed that you're losing money on this? So, yeah.
Janet,
So-
we have a 5-minute warning.
Right, and if so, we have any other, do we have any questions for the three of our panelists, or otherwise we would go to breakout? We could go to breakout now, breakout sessions. Okay. Oh,
To add to this point about Coal Creek, Mercer County, where Coal Creek is located, they maintain the transmission. And so, they're still betting on coal. They have zoned out wind and solar in Mercer County. And so they're really betting on coal. And CCS, obviously.
So no, I don't see any other questions for everybody. So we can go to breakout rooms, and so people should see a little, and tech people help me if I'm wrong, but you should see a square, a little 4 squares, and if you click on that, then you can.
Yes, and
see.
if you'll
Help
see
me.
4 different rooms to join. And if you're unable to join, just go ahead and stay in the main room, and we'll just assign you to a room.
And then we'll go to breakout rooms for 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together for a short time.
Yes.
So you can choose your own breakout room.
Is anyone having problems getting to a room? Cheryl? Okay.
I don't see the ability to do
I'd
that.
like to go into Ross's breakout room, please. I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, I'll put you in Ross's room.
Thank you.
Yeah, just speak up if you want help with that.
Kim, this is Leslie. Can you put me into Ross's room, please?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Alan, I can't hear you.
Could I go to Ross's room? I couldn't find a button.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Megan Smith wants to go anywhere.
Ask her if she got a prompt.
So,
Okay,
so,
no, nothing's popping up on my screen like it did yesterday.
so is somebody putting Megan in a room?
And you don't have a preference on where to go?
You know, I'm so new to this, I don't.
It's all good.
I'm learning wherever I am, I'm learning.
All right, I'll put you in Ross's room.
Thank you.
And
Great.
see, Judy Cook. Do you have a choice? Judy, I can't hear you. Or are you an assistant I haven't heard about?
I asked her to unmute, so.
Sometimes it
Or you could stay with us.
Yeah.
We need company too.
And I might pop into Lucas's room.
Sometimes people step away from the screen too, so.
That went surprisingly well.
It doesn't say that Judy is unassigned.
I think sometimes there are issues with that breakouts.
Yeah. It says that she is in Brad's group.
Some people have said they just don't see the prompt. Yeah. Yeah, that went smoother than it did with our practice even.
Good. And I'm not getting a reply, so maybe maybe she's not by the screen. And we can, what can we hear?
Oh, that's Kim is next to me in a breakout.
Oh, okay. Oh, sure. Okay. Well, lots of interest in the utility questions. It's more new to people, I think.
It's such an interesting area. Like I had no clue, really until I hear how different that looked in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. In Minnesota, it's very different compared if you're in a big city like Northfield. Even out, you go outside of Northfield, and then you're in the utility co-ops, and in our city council, in our Environmental Quality Commission, it just came up. Would we want to develop a city utility? And our liaison, who's really knowledgeable, said, the city staffer said that it's very complicated doing that. I think it's just so different from state to state.
Yeah, it was why I was really surprised by Lucas's stat about how many have goals like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It looks like we got a good spread of people in each room.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks perfect, really. Yeah, really good.
Looks like we got about 6 minutes left. 7.
Our city just did a carbon fee and dividend resolution. And it's just different in every city.
Yeah. So it was a general carbon fee and dividend one?
Yeah, I'm on the Environmental Quality Commission, and I didn't get to talk about it. I can tell you about it. So a couple years ago, I brought it up in Environmental Quality Commission, and I did it in kind of a sudden way without a lot of prep. And I got shot down by one particular influential person right away. And then Northfield started developing a climate action plan, which is a long process, and it's very strong, I think. And said something about, well, as they develop that, they can come up with the people on that plan, creating that plan can come up, they can bring it back to the city council, a resolution. And then they ended up not doing it and passing the buck back to Environmental Quality Commission. So it was kind of ping-ponged a bit, but then Environmental Quality Commission started working on it last summer, and nothing's fast, you know, but and the person writing it, who's a CCL member, included the bill number in it. It had principles of basically the principles of carbon fee and dividend, which are similar to what's in the economist statement and what's in the bill. And the bill number was in there too, but that got pruned out because the city manager it made him nervous, and because it didn't want to get partisan.
Right.
So
right.
But it's a good resolution. It passed 6-1.
That's great.
Yeah.
In the general, I mean, I wonder if it could almost be advantageous at this point, since it's going to have a new bill number anyway very soon.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So yeah, I was wondering that too. And one of the council members who used to tell Howard White all the time, it doesn't matter, Congress doesn't listen to us. Now she came back to me and said she's a member of, and this is something folks might want to know, she's a member of something called the Democratic Municipal Officers Organization. And she said I could take a resolution template to that organization and get it distributed to everybody. And I said to her, you could do either, well, you know, carbon fee and dividend principles, or you could do the bill. And so now it's in her court, and I haven't heard back from her, which is something that happens a lot, well, with lots of different people. But then I thought, well, do we really want to pass out to this big Democratic organization the bill, you know, right now, if we're not sure what it's going to come back as? So that's on a bigger level, just what you were saying is
yeah,
maybe wait, but then once it's introduced, then we want to move like lightning.
Yeah, I know that there's discussion at national with what do we do with all of these endorsements? Do we have to go back to each and every one, say, because the likelihood is, I've heard that the bill should be very similar, but it's likely that there might be some small difference. And if there is, I'm not sure you can count them. So
yeah,
it's going to be a lot of work.
Right. Yeah. My representative, who was an early co-sponsor, Angie Craig, she said, well, this is supposed to be just kept under wraps or whatever, but she said her staffer said that she wants to really read the bill before she commits to endorsing it, which makes perfect sense if they add a lot of other loopholes to it. I'm not paying attention to the time. Let's see, we're supposed to come back at 1:15. So we're still good.
Sorry, technical question there.
Yeah. Then there's also the question of whether it's going to get folded into some giant bill, which it seems like there's who knows?
Yeah, it was so interesting with some of those secondary asks we just had. How you were looking at them and they would just, like you said, get wrapped into COVID relief or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting how that works. I really liked hearing the panelists' full stories. I got bits and pieces, but it was great to hear just amazing.
Yeah, that's really good.
I kind of like that each had a story of being like immediately rejected and then having to, because it just makes it less frustrating because everyone experiences that. And
Yeah.
they're such great examples of.
You won't feel like it's because you were stupid, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, 30 seconds in a minute.
When they come back, I'll ask them to talk about to say what their, one thing that they learned or one thing that they'll do.
Yeah, and they'll
and one
be,
of those things is-
yeah, and I still have, I still have the, not unmute, so they'll do the raise hand and we'll ask to unmute, right?
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so use the reactions tab if they can find it.
Here they come.
I think we have everybody back.
Okay, great. Okay. And so what we're going to do now is that we'd like to hear you say in just a short 1 or 2 sentences, something that you learned, something that you'll, or what you'll do next. And to do that, if you see a button in your lower right of your screen that says reactions. And if you click on that, you can see something that says raise hand. And then that will raise you up to the top of the list and we'll ask you to unmute. Okay. So see, I think let's see. So
See that Cheryl has her hand raised if she'd like to share.
okay, great.
Yeah, I think I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm on the city council and we have a small group of our CCL chapter here, but we have a pretty supportive council for sustainability. And I think it would be an important step for us to start a sustainability committee. So I'm going to work towards that and talk to some of the members of our CCL chapter to volunteer to be on that, because I think that's an important first step discussion for our city. And I think to also continue the energy audits that we began and voted to change out the lighting for the police station. So that's something that I'm going to work towards.
Great.
Thanks for the inspiration.
And Sandy, you have your hand up, right?
Yes, I just want to highlight that we've been talking with OPPD and just now in the session with Lucas, he brought up this really good point that I think will be something else to share with OPPD is how carbon pricing is helpful for utilities and that it minimizes risk, and that utilities are all about minimizing their risk and being able to know what's coming, and I think would be a helpful point for them. So I thought that was very helpful.
Others have something that they're going to do next or that they just learned.
Didn't learn much.
there's a hand up, Janet.
Okay, thanks. Oh, yes, there it is. So Mary Haltvick.
Yes, I learned an awful lot. Every time I sit in one of these sessions, I get more and more ideas for my next letters to the editor. So that's always a great help. And I did learn, thanks to Lucas, how important carbon pricing is or can be for a utility. As far as what I'm going to do next, I got a lot of great ideas about approaching a city council and how one might go about doing that. We're currently in our chapter working on getting the endorsement of our legislators, our Minnesota senators and Minnesota representatives, the ones that fall within our congressional district. And we're seeing a little bit of success there and learning learning how to do that. And I would assume some of the approaches that we have will be similar to how we approach a local city council.
Mhm.
So city council, here we come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet, I'll just mention, this is Leslie. In a couple times, the energy district was mentioned. Ross in Decorah mentioned it. So Winnebago Energy District started, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. They just had their 10th anniversary. And it's the first one it was the first one in the nation. And now there are at least 10 across Iowa, including one in Polk County, which is Des Moines. And some neighboring states have started this model also. It's modeled after the soil conservation districts. And so, you know, I'm not encouraging CCL members necessarily to go and start an energy district because we've already got a lot on our plates, but I think it's something to look at. And you could, you know, there might be other people in the area that are really interested in keeping your energy costs locally. They do a lot of, they do energy audits. It's a nonprofit. It's free energy audits for those that are over 65. They come in, our energy district is fortunate to have an AmeriCorps team. So that team pre-COVID and post-COVID will come into a home, change out all the LED bulbs, add insulation, that kind of thing. And then the leadership also does a lot of advocacy work at the state level and that kind of thing as far as regarding utilities and all of that. So it's a great model and I highly recommend you look into it.
You know, one thing I've learned from this is I knew that it just reinforced for me how different utilities are, or how differently they're organized state to state. And I don't understand all that. That would be something that might be good to learn more about and see what we can copy that's happening in another state and what things we have to do uniquely in our particular state. Are there things you've learned or things you'll do next?
I would just like to say how impressed I am with young people in this organization. And I think we will certainly be looking for brilliant young people to be part of our group.
Do we have other comments or last things you'd like to say? I see Brian has his hand raised and I don't hear him.
I was just going to point out that
Brian?
I was just going to point out that Michael looks like Michael had a
I'm sorry.
or question.
Okay.
Over.
Michael Overend.
There we go. Thanks. Sorry. I was just going to say that we've, for people that are looking for previous examples, we have a community in northern Minnesota called Grand Marais. They successfully went through a process of developing a climate action plan and a sustainability plan. I know that my hometown of St. Louis Park, Minnesota has done the same thing. I'm sure there are other communities around the 5-state area that have done this, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You may want to just check out those communities that have done this and make note of how they've been successful. The comment about young people, I know the Grand Marais story and the St. Louis Park story, they were both initiated by both grade school, high school, middle school kids that marched into city council chambers and said, we need something to be done. And they were the inciting point to move those communities towards their successful development of plans. So I know that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are other people that have done it, and they're very good stories.
So, other comments? If not, then I'll think of wrapping up. Last words. So, did I miss anybody? Because I can't see all the screen. Okay, so thank you very much, and thank you to our panelists, Brad Kingery, Lucas Sabalka, and Ross Hadley. And there's their contact info. And thank you so much. This is
Thanks,
great.
everybody. Thanks for participating and thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.
Yes, thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice job, Janet. Thank you.
So 100% of my moderating things have turned out okay. Since this is the first one.
And now we're done.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. Yeah.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much to you too.
Yeah, Janet, you did a great job.
Thank you that you just. Thanks a lot, Daniel, and Kim is so organized. It's really great. So that may get you
I
into
like
a
to
lot more
organize
work.
things.
Being so organized may get you more work. Bye, guys. I'll
Bye.
sign
Nice
off.
to see you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. We're going to see our grandkids because it's so warm out. We're going to go sit in their backyard.
Oh, what's the temperature?
Oh, it's let's see. It is 32. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how warm? It's 30 here, and that's yeah.
Yeah.
We got 36, so that's a plus. So
Yeah, you're just lording it over us down south.
Exactly. I just want the sun to come out. It's been so cloudy here.
Yeah.
sunny out here. You ought to try out the western part of the state. It's usually bright. So
I'll just go for a drive today. A long drive. It's a beautiful part of the state, though.
Yeah.
Do you have hills where you live?
Well, there are hills in proximity. You don't usually see them. We do have
Okay.
there is a case, that